Alright, so I just want to start by congratulating you for making it to this video, because even though it might not seem that easy, just by acknowledging that fapping, that consuming porn isn't good for you, isn't healthy, you're over halfway to solving the problem and quitting for good. Because there are so many other guys out there who will make excuses, who will say, oh, it's not harming anyone, oh, it's good stress relief. But these are the same guys who can't look a woman in the eye. They're the same guys who have terrible mental health because they have annihilated their dopamine receptors to the point where they can't even experience happiness like you or me. But I promise you, I can totally relate to how you're feeling, because sometimes just knowing how bad it is for you, but still feeling that compulsion to just touch yourself, that urge that just overcomes all rational thought, is even worse than flat out ignorance. And that's why I'm making this video, because I wanted to share what it actually took for me to stop doing this. This is coming from someone who tried everything, like every single solution you can find on the internet. I installed the porn blockers to stop me going on my favorite websites. Didn't work. Anytime I experienced urges, I would hit a set of push-ups, a set of jumping jacks. It didn't work. But through the advice I'm about to reveal to you in this video, I no longer watch porn. I no longer even think about porn. Several weeks will go by and I'll just forget masturbation is even a concept that exists in our reality. And of course, like any healthy young male, I still experience sexual urges, desires, but the difference is I have broken the link between those urges and the action of touching my penis to relieve myself. So I'm going to explain in great detail my 3-step process for how I stopped fapping, for how I stopped beating my meat and finally conquered my urges. Right, so step 1. I know we all kind of have the perception that fapping is this impromptu thing. The urges kind of come out of nowhere, you act on them and then you've relapsed. But if you've been doing this for long enough, and if you're anything like me, I suspect you have. I literally started fapping at age 13, a disgusting age to be watching porn. There will inevitably be patterns to be found in your behavior. So what do I mean by patterns? Well, it could be the time of day you're doing it. It could always be in the same room of the house, like your bedroom. It could even be the type of porn that you're watching regularly. Have a think, because there's very often something in common between all these experiences. So to be very candid and give you an example, what I would always do was I'd wake up, I'd grab my phone on the bedside counter, immediately start scrolling before I'd even left the bed. And of course I'd end up on Instagram, see some provocative content, maybe like some OnlyFans chick, and I'd end up busting. And I used to do that multiple times a week. That is the textbook definition of a pattern, or for better words, a ritual. So your brain actually prefers it when things are predictable. So it's constantly forming these unconscious habits and rituals in order to expend less brain power. And of course that can be a good thing. Like that is a survival mechanism to help us learn things quicker. But in this case, in the context of watching porn and fapping, it is obviously a bad thing. If there's a specific ritual that you're always sticking to when it comes to fapping, then naturally your brain will begin to associate certain environments and settings with the act of fapping. And what that means is the urges can kind of come from nowhere. If I'm always fapping in my bedroom, just being in my bedroom is triggering urges that I didn't have before. Right, so how do we begin to counteract this? So the first exercise I have for you is I want you to figure out what your main rituals are. Maybe your top 1 to 2 rituals that you're always falling into. I want you to grab a pen and paper and get highly specific when it comes to writing these down. I want you to go through that entire sequence from start to finish. Write it down in detail, not just the time, not just the setting, but what was the trigger? Were you on social media? Were you on the computer and something just kind of triggered those urges? The last time I did this, I easily wrote 3 to 4 pages of notes just because I was being so specific. I wrote down absolutely everything that led up to the act itself. So checking if anyone's around outside, locking my door, grabbing the fucking tissues, going on my favorite websites and browsing through them. And if that sounds kind of gross, too much information. That's kind of the point. It's becoming aware of all these weird kind of fucked up habits that you're just turning your brain off for those sexual urges. It's seeing them for what they are. It's often the case that we're not even conscious of these habits whilst we're performing those actions. So by becoming aware of it, you are breaking the automatic nature of the habit and seeing it for the negative it is. And most importantly, by going through that ritual step by step, you're giving yourself as many opportunities as you can to interrupt that process. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I determine that using my phone in my bedroom at a particular time of day is triggering my urges, then the best thing I could do would be to make my room a phone-free zone. I could say, right, not going on my phone at all after this particular time, or right, I'm leaving my phone downstairs when I go to bed, whatever you want to make it. Or if I'm always fapping or consuming porn at literally the same time every day without fail, the best thing I could do would to literally be doing anything else at that time, distracting myself in any other way, going and hanging out with a friend, not even being in the house. I want you to know that all it takes is one intervention out of so many other possible places you could interrupt the process. All it takes is one to kill the entire sequence and break the habit. All right, so step number 2. We're going to develop what we just learned a little bit further. Instead of focusing on the physical triggers, the environmental triggers, we're going to focus on the feeling, the emotional state that led up to you fapping. So you might have already done this. You might have already identified this as part of your porn ritual. But I want you to think back to the last time you fapped. What was the emotion that you were feeling directly before that? Was it sadness? Was it just being bored out of your minds? Were you stressed out about something? So I'll tell you something. The thing that links so many experiences of men when it comes to watching porn, fapping, they're always trying to escape from something that they don't want to feel. They're always feeling something negative before they end up turning to porn. And again, I'll get real and I'll tell you what it was like for me. So I kind of have this weird guilt complex where if I'm not sticking to all of my good habits, if I'm not being ultra disciplined, if I miss one thing on my to-do list, then I'll just think of myself as an absolute failure. And honestly, not too long ago, what that feeling of failure would translate to was just like, I fucked up the entire day. I might as well just go all in on degenerate habits, start again tomorrow. And that is usually when I'd relapse. So as men, we've conditioned our brains to think fapping, ejaculation, is the absolute best method in the world for stress relief. And we don't even investigate any other possibilities at this point. We just automatically start touching ourselves downstairs. But I want to help you understand what might be the root cause behind that, of why we feel the need to turn to this particular outlet. So I've got another exercise for you. And this one is specifically for the next time you feel like you're about to relapse. So I want you to stop everything, grab your phone and set a 4 to 5 minute timer and then just do nothing. I want you to just sit with those bodily sensations, try to process all of them. I really want you to dig deep and think about what you're actually experiencing. Are you actually horny and aroused? Or are you just stressed out? Is something like a work task or something else making you really stressed out and you just want a way of releasing all of that pent up energy? Or are you just mind-numbingly bored and you want to feel something? You want that sensation of pleasure, because it's so often the case that we aren't actually horny, that these urges aren't coming from a natural place, and that there is a root cause behind them. Porn and or masturbation is usually a coping mechanism for whatever the real problem is. Like I said, a way of relieving that stress. So if we can figure out what that problem is, that underlying problem, we can start to fix it and make positive changes so we don't feel the need to rely on porn as that stress relief. And for me, the problem wasn't necessarily a simple fix. It is still somewhat ongoing. And that's just me trying to live up to my own high standards. Me trying to be uber productive all the time, super disciplined like David Goggins. But a simple change I made that did have a massive benefit was just not expecting so much from myself on a day-to-day basis, not overloading my diary with all these different tasks that even the most most disciplined person on earth couldn't actually get done. And when I realized that those expectations I was placing upon myself were pretty unrealistic, it was like I could stop setting myself up for failure and actually start winning more of my days. So I wouldn't feel guilty anymore, and I wouldn't feel the need to fap at the end of the day to get rid of all of that guilt. So I want you to keep practicing that exercise. Don't give up even if you can't figure out what the underlying reason is on the first few tries. It might take a couple of goes. But yeah, our ultimate goal is to figure out what purpose that porn is serving in our lives, what we can do to fix that problem. All right, so number 3, hopefully by this point, you would have identified a good number of your physical and emotional triggers to stop yourself from falling into those unconscious habits and rituals and avoid that potential relapse. However, like I said before, if you're a healthy young man, and I'm guessing most of you watching this will be, it's always going to be the case. It's always going to be the reality that some urges will just seem to emerge from nowhere. You might just be going about your day as normal, not even thinking about any of this. And suddenly that sexual desire just hits you out of nowhere and you don't know how to act. And since it is not going anywhere, but we're not going to act on it through masturbation, we must find a healthier alternative to release all of that pent-up energy. So I've always known that there are some people who can just go cold turkey, not just on fapping, but like any bad habit, and it works for them. I've never been one of those people. Personally, I just don't have that much willpower. Like I can't in the moment tell myself not to do it just through willpower alone. So if that sounds like you, if you're relating to that, it's always going to be much easier, instead of going cold turkey, to replace the bad habit with something else. So we know by now that we use porn, we use fapping to relax the body, to bring us into a calmer state. And there is some kind of scientific backing to this, like ejaculation down regulates the nervous system and brings our body into a state of relaxation. And I know that makes it sound like it's healthy. I just want to reassure you that it is not, because of how overstimulating that experience is, how much extraordinary amounts of dopamine are being sent into your brain, can desensitize your receptors, can make you feel less happy in your day-to-day life. And it can also lead you to anticipating that next hit of dopamine. And if you know what I'm on about, that is how an addiction forms. So that is still an absolute no-go. We don't want to do that. Since there is nothing inherently wrong with the body's desire to release that energy, to calm down, to enter that more relaxed state, there is absolutely nothing stopping us from implementing healthier habits whenever we're experiencing those desires to actually achieve the same end result. So there are so many different things you can do when you're experiencing those urges to calm down your nervous system, to feel more relaxed. I know some people swear by cold showers. They say that shock to the system just gets rid of all the urges. I also know some people who will hit a set of 10 push-ups anytime they feel that state of arousal coming on. But for me personally, I don't particularly like those two methods. And the reason for that is because they are conditional. They are dependent on me being in a particular setting where I have access to a shower, where I'm not going to look like a little bit of a weirdo doing a set of push-ups in the office in the middle of the day. So the method I like to use is fully unconditional. You can do it no matter where you are in the world. Doesn't matter what time it is, it's always going to be socially acceptable, so you won't look a little bit strange for doing it. And that's breath work. The breath work I do and that I'm about to teach you is so effective in killing my urges. And the best part is there's just so little friction involved to stop me from doing it. It's just a super easy habit to implement. It literally only takes 2 minutes. So the breathwork practice I use is super popular. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. So essentially what that is, and we can do it right now, is you're counting these numbers in your head. So it's a 4-second inhale through the nose, then hold it for 7 seconds, then exhale through the mouth for 8 seconds. And you want to repeat that back to back for 4 sets. And what that deep breathing is doing is calming the body down. It's bringing blood pressure, the heart rate, back to a normal level and redirecting the blood flow away from your genitals. Because you know, of course, when you're horny, all of that sexual energy is being concentrated around your dick. So what we're doing is kind of rebalancing all of that energy and bringing it back to normal. In my opinion, this should be your go-to outlet for whenever you feel like you're about to relapse. And when you get to the point of experiencing fighting those urges and going automatically to your breath work as opposed to touching your penis, that's when you know that you've fully severed this psychological link. Alright, so I hope you found this video helpful. A lot of the credit goes to a YouTuber called Man Talks. I'm gonna link him down in the description. It was actually his guide to quitting porn that finally got me over the line. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to him. And I just want to give you a quick reminder, when it comes to reaching the point where you don't rely on porn, where you're not relying on fapping anymore, getting to that process is going to involve relapsing. It's normal to expect a few bumps on the road to success or whatever cliche shit I'm trying to say. But when you've deeply ingrained a habit, probably for over 10 years of your life, in the way that fapping is a thing for most people, it isn't going to be super straightforward getting to that point. But if you're in that same boat, I've always found that extra accountability is never a bad thing. That's why I'd advise you to join my Discord server to find yourself an accountability partner. I'm really proud of the community I've built so far. It's only small, but I can say wholeheartedly that everyone in there wants you to succeed. We're all on the same journey. We're all trying to better ourselves. So why can't we just have a bit of fun whilst doing that? That is my aim with this community. So link in the description for that. That is all from me today, bro. I will see you in the next one.